When I was a kid, it was a lot more common for kids at birthday parties to be gathered around a console and TV, jostling each other for game time. The PlayStation 2 was the undisputed king of this kind of experience. Most of the time, it would be a fighting game or a racing game. Such things naturally lend themselves to the shared co op or competitive experience amongst tweens. I am not what you call a great gamer. I tend to avoid playing competitive games if I can help it, but I do have a core memory of being gathered around a PS2 and playing Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves. You might imagine that this would be a strange game for a kid's birthday party, and you'd be right, save for the fact that it had a biplane duel mode. Two players fly biplanes around an arena and attempt to shoot each other down. I am generally not the greatest at games, but let me tell you, I absolutely crushed it at that mode. I must have beaten every single kid at that party before they all vetoed this game for the rest of the day. I sometimes think about that experience, about the aerial dogfighting, and the excitement that comes from what is essentially just a joust in the air. So, in the spirit of young me's fascination with biplanes, allow me to tell you about Knights of the Air, the latest game from BD Brickworks, and the latest expansion to the Brassbound universe. Before I explain why you should play this game, I think a couple of disclaimers are necessary in the interests of full transparency. I am not being paid to make this video. I am making this video because I believe in the project, and I think you should give it a go. BD Brickworks has agreed to send me a kit for Knights of the Air, but this will be for review of the kits when the game is out. My opinions are my own, and you are free to regard or disregard what I say. As always, let me know in the comments. If this video is well received, I will be making a how-to player guide for Knights of the Air when it is formally released. Right, so with the disclaimers out of the way, I can talk about Knights of the Air. Firstly, let me say that it's a great name for a tabletop game. It is instantly evocative of the kinds of pseudo-chivalric pulp adventure that I associate with the early days of manned aviation. These days, with our 5th-gen stealth fighters and drone swarms, we tend to forget that man's first steps into powered aerial combat were both very clunky but still very earnest. There was a sincere, if short-lived, culture of chivalry in the days of World War I's aerial combat, owing in part, I think, to the huge number of former cavalrymen who swapped horses for biplanes. But also, the nature of technology contributed. Relatively fragile, slow-moving aircraft that, by necessity, must engage with each other up close with aerial maneuvers is the kind of combat that I would associate with the martial spirit of knights, of course replacing lances with short-range machine guns. Aviation was always going to get better, it was always going to become faster and more dangerous, but for a very brief moment, the old world and the new collided with a riot of color and personality. This fantasy, although faded these days, was relatively commonplace in video games. The most popular example of this is probably Crimson Skies, which is itself both a video game and a tabletop. Certainly, Crimson Skies is something I'd like to cover in its own video someday, but Knights of the Air is a game that I think deserves its own focus, and that's for a couple of reasons. Firstly, BD Brickworks has really done a lot of work making a compelling dieselpunk post-apocalyptic setting. The Brassbound universe is one that has a lot of narrative potential as a fusion of history and fantasy, featuring, of course, an actual apocalypse of the world circa 1920s. In the same way that the Mad Max setting allows for all sorts of wacky and cool vehicles in the outback, the new potential of adamantine to revolutionize warfare on the ground and, for our purposes, in the air, can't be understated. I think that the grim neutral aspects of the setting contrast nicely against the norm for early aviation games, which tend to be both brighter and much more cheerful. The Brassbound universe is certainly not fully grimdark. You can have optimism about the setting, but things are also pretty dire, beyond a lovable band of sky pirates hijacking your airship. If that is your cup of tea, then this I think will be the perfect game for your dogfighting in the ruins of the world that was. If not, I still think the system and the implications of it will be perfect for aerial tabletop adventures. I am a #1 fan of using LEGO for tabletop games. I've said it many times on this channel, and I'll continue to say it, but I think that LEGO is a great medium for all sorts of wargaming. But in particular, Knights of the Air hits a particular chord with me for two reasons. The early planes, like biplanes, are structurally quite simple, 2 layers of wings and a fuselage. That's really very easy to achieve with LEGO. Secondly, this is the era of diverse aerial designs and colors. Before people knew the best practices for aircraft, anything actually went. People were constantly experimenting with aircraft designs, colors, and tactics before the book on aerial warfare had even been written yet. So, with the power of LEGO to build your own models, you've got the perfect medium for exploring your creativity as an aircraft builder. Knights of the Air doesn't just feature planes. Zeppelins are also a big part of the gameplay experience, giving you ample means to make airships of all stripes and shapes. Throughout this video, you've been seeing all sorts of designs from the community for aircraft. This is but a small glimpse of what's possible. The rest is up to you. Finally, I think the game has an interesting risk-reward mechanic that really captures the feeling of those early aerial dogfights. I'll go into more detail when I do my how to play video, but essentially the mechanic is called integrity, and it refers to the actual integrity of your aircraft. Remember, many of these aircraft were often quite flimsy in comparison to later vehicles, and more than one ran on a hope and a prayer. So, whenever you do complex aerial maneuvers, which you do need to do for the dogfighting, you need to test if your aircraft falls apart. Naturally, if your craft is undamaged, this is automatically passed, but as you pick up damage, the risk gets higher. As this goes higher and higher, it increases the likelihood that your aircraft just falls apart. Maybe the last machine gun pass left a few too many holes, and the aerial twists and turns stress the frame too much and it breaks up. Or maybe it's fine and you get to line up the next perfect shot to shoot down your enemy. This focus is very much in a personal way, and I like that. It makes the combat feel exactly like how it should, like you're doing an aerial duel, that you are a knight in the air. So, BD Brickworks has been working to release a beta in late 2025. In terms of what's going to be released, there will be 3 PvP missions, 2 factions with a third plan for the future, and of course, plans for both cooperative and solo play. As this is a community-led game, there will be room for people to contribute and grow the game. If this sounds like something you'd like to do, join the Discord, which is provided for in the description. I think that this is a game for people who yearn for some pulp adventure on the tabletop, for people whose creativity and tactics can only be matched by their creativity in model building. It has been a long while since early aviation was in vogue in our culture, and I think that this is a game that is going to be a great starting point for people who want to dogfight without breaking the bank. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you consider giving Knights of the Air a look. Remember to like the video and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Until next time, take care.